Thank you, Grant, for that introduction. And yeah, it's wonderful to be here at the Hassan Indigenous Research Data Commons. And I'd like to acknowledge that I'm on Gadigal Land and to just say how much I appreciate the perspective and wisdom that we get from Indigenous knowledge and culture in this country. And to echo Michael's words yesterday, that we are very lucky to be in this amazing place with this heritage. So my name's Amanda Lawrence. I'm the Program Director at the Australian Internet Observatory at RMIT University. And we're going to do a bit of a panel today because there's a lot going on at the Australian Internet Observatory. It's a bit of a smorgasbord. So I will have myself, Professor Richard Sinnott from the University of Melbourne, Lauren Hayden can I get this a little larger? At the University of Queensland, Patrik Wikström from the University of Queensland University of Technology, who'll be via video, and Giselle Newton, Dr. Giselle Newton from the University of Queensland, and Dr. Bogdan Mamaev from Deakin University. So I'm going to start things by just having a think about why we need an Internet Observatory and the Digital Platform Research and Digital Observability Challenge. So we live in a world now immersed in digital platforms. Digital society, cultures and economies orchestrate our lives. And these platforms are the way in which we get access to our education, our jobs, how we play, how we meet each other, how we connect, how we love, how we hate. And it's all orchestrated a lot by these platforms. So this offers us a huge opportunity for studying the human condition and societies in ways that actually social science and humanities researchers have never had before. The scale of the research that's available is enormous. The data that's available is enormous. And there's a few different key ways in which we can think about this. So digital platforms offer us access to people's content, their attitudes, their influences, their trends and public discourse. It's also an opportunity to study the platforms themselves, their affordances, the algorithmic biases, the personalization that is now underway. We're not really seeing the same content. So how do we know what everybody else is seeing? So this is an opportunity to think about studying misinformation and fake news and how that's impacting our social cohesion and democracy. There's advertising, programmatic advertising is a huge part of what's driving the digital platforms, where our children are on learning platforms. We're getting access to health via apps, cybersecurity and surveillance, search and the recommender systems that we all experience. So all of these, it's beyond social media. We've got devices on our wrists. We've got devices in our cars. So there's huge diversity of this material and it comes in many different forms. However, despite the amount of material and data that's out there, it's actually really difficult for researchers to get access to. And we want access not just to the data, but also the interactions. So APIs have been used over the last couple of decades to provide access to a large amount of data, but this is controlled by digital platforms and it has become increasingly reduced. So we need to go beyond what platforms may do in terms of transparency or accountability, and which is often said on their terms, and try and bring something in, a perspective from what researchers need. So the API situation has been getting harder and harder. A lot of research has been done on what was Twitter, now X. That's pretty much inaccessible unless you've got a very large bank account. And there have been, increasing shutdowns and control provided by the platforms. So what we're calling for is platform observability or digital observability. And this is actually an increasingly loud call and a movement, in fact. So the Digital Services Act in Europe is now providing some level of a transparency or requirement for digital platforms. It's quite unclear how this will actually operate. The GDPR has also enabled access to data in new ways. In the UK, Smart Data UK have launched an inquiry into data access for researchers in particular. So there's a real opportunity here to move in this space, particularly led by what's happening in Europe, but I think we can also look at what regulation may be able to provide in Australia. We've been doing a little bit of research on what the researchers in Australia need. So a lot of people are interested in platforms like Instagram, TikTok and Facebook. All of these do not have API access. YouTube, we can get some access to. Gen AI and how that's impacting the world is a huge area of interest. So as you can see, there's kind of a diversity of platforms that people are interested in. They're also interested in a range of methods. So we can't assume that one method will provide everything for all researchers. The web scraping is being used a lot at a small scale, but people are interested in data donations, and we'll talk about that in more detail today. APIs, sorry, the screen is a little small, and Gen AI tools. So there's also a range of methods that we need to think about. So enter the Australian Internet Observatory, which supports digital observability for researchers through innovative data collection and analysis tools, methods and workflows. It's a co-investment with the ARDC and 6 university partners. And also the ADM+S, the ARC Centre of Excellence for Automated Decision Making has been an initiative, there's been an initiative of the centre. So the key project elements, which we'll cover some of these today, but it's basically 4 key areas where we're thinking about how do we collect and access data through data donations, through APIs, through generative AI, mobile apps, etc. Then how do we analyse that data? What are the new tools, especially finding tools that are easy for researchers to access and use, dashboards and analytics, test environments. And then how are we thinking about the connection of the data, the governance of that data, ethics and legal issues, so the framework for all of that. And then, of course, how do we engage with researchers? How do we onboard them? How do we train them? This is a whole new world, in fact, for social science and humanities research, and also often research that isn't sort of for one individual. It may require teams now. So this is perhaps a different model from previous forms of research. So that's basically my wrap of the elements. I'm going to hand over now to Richard, who will talk us through what's been happening with social media and APIs at the University of Melbourne.
Okay, hello everyone. Amanda forewarned me. She said, you have 5 minutes, don't go longer than 5 minutes. So I could speak a lot longer, but I'll try to stay to time. All right, so I'm Professor Richard Sinnott. I have a fairly large team of engineers at the university. We're about 40 now, give or take. We work in all kinds of projects from art and humanities to zoology. Most of the work I do is to do with big data and security. So lots of medical, lots of defense, many different things. We've been using social media for 15, 16 years, since I pretty much got to the university. I use it for teaching. I teach cloud computing. We have about 500 students take this class. It's kind of crazy, but it's the truth. And so we've been collecting lots of different social media for a long time. Initially, we started off with Twitter because it was easy. And then we had Instagram. But then Musk and Zuckerberg came and said, you can't have that anymore. It's all ours. And so we've looked into other sources. And we have Mastodon, Reddit, Blue Sky, etc. We don't scrape. I mean, it's very easy to scrape websites. So there are tools, Scrapey and many others that can do this. We don't do that. We use any kind of social media platform which has an API, which we can programmatically talk to and pull out data. And we only use data for Australia. We're not interested in Trump or Weibo in China, etc. We focus on all the content that is of interest or related to Australia. I will just give you a few present where we are. So anyone can log into this system now. That's the URL at the top. You log in using your own university identifier. If you're from University of Wollongong, wherever it might be, you can log in as yourself with your home authentication system. And then once you're in, you have access to a whole range of different things. We're collecting data all the time. So we collect 500,000 Blue Sky posts a day. We collect lots of Mastodon, lots of Reddit, and we do things with that. So it's coming into the system. We aggregate it. We tell you how many posts are coming in, from which platform, which time. We run it through topic modeling. I'll try and speed up. So you don't need to worry, if you're interested in what are people talking about today in Australia? It might be the Oasis who had a gig. It might be AFL. It might be politics. It might be Gaza. It could be anything. We're running algorithms over this data repeatedly to capture what's the vibe and what's going on. You can identify, show me all the posts that mention a certain thing. I'll show you an example of this in a tick. We're also building systems which allow you to interface to the data just using text, asking questions in natural language. We've integrated large language models into this space to do that. And we're doing a bit of a deeper dive to demonstrate what can be done if you have a bit more technical savviness to be able to do things with this data yourself. All right, so death by snapshots now. So this gives you an update of where we were. I can't remember when I did this, but a couple of days ago, but you can sort of see we have a lot of data pouring into the system. We have lots. We were collecting data from Twitter. We stopped. You can sort of see the amount of data we're getting from Blue Sky. There are lots of people out there posting all the time, and we want to be able to understand what they're posting around. We can run it through topic modeling. So that's a typical thing we do. All this data, I can say, what were people talking about in October of this year on Twitter or on Blue Sky? And it will show you the things they were mentioning about flotilla. This was like when the boat went to Israel and it was blocked by the Israeli authorities, etc. Again, this is what's happening. This is what people are talking about. We're making observations. You can then dive into what exactly are they saying. And you see the patterns of people who talk about, people are talking about West and council and tax and areas, etc. Again, a lot of it's just noise. Some of it's actually interesting, and lots of people are using this now. When I use this system, or when we build systems, lots of people, this isn't proper science. If you want to do social analysis of the population, you use the Bureau of Statistics, the official data. This is live. This is happening. There are millions of people doing it all the time. If you want to know what's really happening in Australia right now, you can wait for the next census, or you can get your finger on the pulse of what's going on. And so what I did, I wasn't quite sure what to present here, and Amanda was very concerned I might put some information up there wasn't appropriate. I just typed in a bunch of terms. So NOM is like the name for Melbourne, I believe. And so I said to Twitter, how many posts have you got? You got 3,000 posts there. If I went to Blue Sky, same thing. You have 2,868 posts on this topic. I could have typed Gadigal, I could have typed Wurundjeri or Kulin or any term you're interested. One thing at the bottom here is that you are allowed to, we tell you the data exists, but we don't give you the data. It's not our data. We're collecting it, we're processing it, but we don't just become a third-party reseller, if you like, of the data. We allow people to download the identifiers for this data, and then they can go and get it for themselves using those APIs. And we have a range of recipes for doing that. So you can find out what's happening out there on conflicts, on crime, on tax, whatever it might be. We have a natural language interface to the system now. So if you're a techie, this is not just an LLM, this is an LLM that's talking to our API. So you can say how many, the dark text here is what I wrote. This was a couple of days ago. What data have you got? It tells you how many posts are there. It tells you what were the top topics in Blue Sky in November. It tells you. So it's just random text now. I could write any old random stuff there. And provided the API has an idea what you're asking, it will start pulling out information. So I then typed in how many posts in Blue Sky mention First Nations people. And it comes back with, Oh, okay. The other example I gave was what was the voice referendum? What do people think about that at the time? And so it brings down all this information. You're just asking questions. We have terabytes of data in the back end. We have an API, and you can just talk to the system, and it will pull out information for you. What we're doing beyond this is we're building ways now with this tool, with the technology. You can then say, show me a graph, show me a plot, do other things. And Amanda's looking like panicking, like we're going to shops. So I'll be very, very quick. For those who want to be able to play with the data themselves, we have an API. You can write some code. We typically use Jupyter notebooks, where you can say, go and get me data. In this case, it was any data that had the words Aboriginal, Torres Strait, or smoking ceremony. I could put anything in there, literally anything. And then it will go and grab that data. It will download the identifiers. It will then, you can go and grab the data yourself, and then you can do some analysis of it. So for those terms I just typed in, I basically said, okay, do some analysis of how many people actually say, if their profile says they're from Melbourne, what percentage of those posts actually say something to do with Naarm or Gadigal or any other term? And so you sort of see how the different platforms are being used by the Indigenous folks or people with an interest in Indigenous social media to post around it. So we can sort of, again, this is not me trying to do science. This is not me trying to do some social anthropological survey of what's going on. This is just me interacting with all this data. And I think Amanda wants me to shut up. Oh, final thing. We have a lot of other official data. So one of my other systems we have, if you want to know where the Chinese people live in Melbourne, how would you do it? Well, we have the Bureau of Statistics. If you want to know what crime happens in Sydney, well, you've got New South Wales Police. We have access to a lot of that official data. And part of what we're going to be doing next, and let's look at the guy in the back, in the middle there, who's the Italian guy, who does a lot of this. So we have a huge amount of other official data. So you've got your social media, noisy, random stuff. And then you got all your official data we have this from 150 something government agencies, which we're folding into the system as well. So if you're interested in crime, alcohol, language distribution, Amanda's telling me to shut, we're bringing that data into. And I have to stop now because she's going to shoot me.
Great. Okay, great. Thanks, Richard. I'm Lauren Hayden. I'm a research fellow with the Australian Internet Observatory, and I'm based up at the University of Queensland. And I'm primarily working on the data donation program that we're developing as part of the AIO. And so data donation is a relatively emergent method in the humanities and social sciences. And it kind of provides an alternative, a counterpoint to the sort of API methods that Richard has just presented on. And data donation, as you can see, very straightforward. It's the idea of people donating their personal kind of digital platform data to a particular research study or project. And the reason that we would consider using data donation methods is because we get a different sort of data, a different cross-section of digital platform data than using traditional API or web scraping methods. And one way to put this is we can describe it as vertical data. So horizontal data is cross-cutting, across total discourse on a particular topic, whereas vertical data is from individuals. So when someone donates their digital platform data, we get a snapshot of how they've used the digital platforms. It could be what comes across their Facebook feed, or the history of YouTube videos they've watched, or how they're particularly targeted by advertising systems. And we'll be hearing from a couple of case examples after my little spiel from Giselle Newton and Patrik Wikström. Another reason that we might consider using data donation is because it can be very easily integrated in other common humanities and social science research methods, things like interviews, focus groups, surveys, diary studies. We have, in the cases, you'll see how researchers are integrating different kinds of data donation with other qualitative research. And finally, data donation, as it started to emerge, has become a very powerful tool as a media literacy or data literacy intervention for participants. We've found in some of our early kind of pilot studies, as well as research published from around the world on data donation, that participants are really reporting that looking at and reflecting on their own data helps them understand how digital platforms collect data about them and what sort of, how their data is being used by the digital platforms. So algorithmic bias, or how they're profiled by advertising, why they are recommended the things they're recommended, for example. So to be a bit more specific, in the AIO, we have 3 primary approaches to data donation. One is a browser extension or plugin that can actually run in the background of a participant's web browser to collect things like advertising, data from that's like embedded in the browser, or things like search history and the results that appear. A second method is called data download packages, and this involves asking participants to download the data archives that's available to them as users. Maybe you have seen this feature before on your Facebook or LinkedIn. Any digital platform usually offers you an opportunity to export your data that the platform has collected about you. So researchers around the world are finding that these kind of personal data archives or data download packages are a really rich data source that kind of tells the story of how people are using platforms and how platforms collect data about their users. And the final method is screen capture. So we've developed a mobile application that can detect advertising that appears on your mobile device and actually create a little personal library of all the advertising you've been exposed to. We'll hear from Giselle about actually using that mobile application in the wild. So just to give a quick overview of the data donation platform that we're building at AIO this looks kind of funny now with the side to side. It looks like a very long process, but I promise you it starts here and ends over here at donated data available for analysis. So researchers through the AIO will actually be able to get their own data donation project up and running using AIO tools. They'll be able to register their data donation project in our system and configure, for example, DDP donation. So DDPs are those data download packages that I mentioned before. Now, they do contain a lot of personal and sensitive information that, as researchers, we're not interested in. I don't want to read your personal messages or your payment information or anything like that. So our platform actually will be able to identify the fields that researchers are interested in collecting for research purposes, things that are de-identified, things that are not really related to your personal information, but more about how the platform has collected data about you, right? Recommendations, things like that. So researchers are able to configure those fields that will actually be collected out of the DDPs, and then recruit participants using a public link. Participants will be able to enroll in the study, and after requesting their download packages from the platform, they'll be able to upload into our system. That data is then available for analysis in our lab tools, which we're presenting on this afternoon, so I'll save that for later on. And now we'll be able to hear an example of a data donation study from Patrik Wikström. He's got a video, so I'll leave that to you. Thanks, everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrik Wikström. I am Professor of Computational Communication at QUT in Brisbane. I'm here to talk about how a research project worked together with the Australian Internet Observatory to pilot the data donation capabilities. We focus on TikTok broadly and Australian experiences of algorithmic culture on TikTok, and we focus on platforms and audiences and creators. So the data donation component sits in the audience stream. I will dive into some of the complexities that we have faced in this project, starting out with the recruitment. So in our case, we worked with a range of different recruitment methods, and the most successful one was with ABC. We were able to recruit most of our participants, probably something like 80% of our participants came through this collaboration with ABC, and the fact that they use their channels to promote the project and the opportunity to be a citizen scientist, as we framed it in this campaign. Once the participants have been enticed to go to the project website, we have a welcome message where we explain why they should participate, and then there are instructions for how to request the data from the TikTok platform. Eventually, they have received the data from the platform, and this is where they are able to use the AIO data donation capability to choose which items. As you can see here, they scroll through the items in the package to select which ones they don't want to share. So once they're happy with the selection that they've made, they provide some demographic data and they share the data with the team. This is where we in the For You project leave the AIO infrastructure, and we provide the user with an immediate reward with some light-hearted visualizations to show them what can be interpreted from their data without any additional complementary data. So we show them that they are a certain persona, that they are a quiet, curious, sampling morning person, and so on and so forth. And we received very good feedback from our participants that they really like this kind of approach. However, we only get so far with this data. So we need to complement the data. And this is a decision that has been made when we designed the data donation facility within the AIO, that the observatory only collect the data donation packages and do not enrich the data beyond what is received from the platform. So what we do in the project and what other projects will be doing in the future is to complement the TDP data with other things. What we're doing is that we scrape complementary data from the platform, and we also have developed a system for annotating the media objects and the metadata at scale. Finally, we recognize that this is not a large population-based study. This is an in-depth approach, and interviews and qualitative studies are very important in order to make sense of the experiences that we record in the data donation packages. So we conduct in-depth interviews with the good people who are participating in our study. So that is all, and that fits into my 5 minutes. I hope that was useful. And if you have any questions related to this, please get in touch with me or anyone else in the team. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm another researcher in the wild. My name is Dr. Giselle Newton, and I'm a research fellow at the Centre of Excellence for Automated Decision Making and Society based at UQ. And the project is called the Australian Ad Observatory. So this is the tool. I'll just slip to this slide. So this is the tool that we're using called the Toolkit for mobile advertising. And what we're interested in doing here is looking at targeted advertising that Australians receive. So this year, the project has worked with 428 Australians. across 4 case studies. The first case study was around the Australian election, looking at political ads within Australians' feeds. So it's a screen recording app that Australians download onto their mobile phone, and during 10 days they collect ads and donate to the study. And so here you can see somebody scrolling, they've got their personal content, and then there's an ad, and the app uses machine vision to detect the sponsored and snips around the ad, and then the ad is sent through to our server. They can also see all of the ads that are collected in their dashboard on their mobile device, and we see it on our end. So this gives them agency and autonomy to remove any ads that they don't want us to see, and us to then go through to data analysis. So we can see all of the ads that they've collected during that 10-day period, and across this year we've collected 175,000 ads from Australians. So in the election study, we're focused on political ads, but we've also been looking at alcohol advertising as part of a study with the Foundation for Alcohol Research and Education, and working closely with the Gambling Alliance as well to on some more focused work on gambling advertising. Sorry, I've just got a different version on this screen. So this is what the participants see on their device, their own archive, which, as I mentioned, they can remove anything that they wouldn't like to be seen by researchers. And they all have a unique activation code, which they inform us of. They also complete an online survey to give us demographic data. And some participants are chosen to then go through to an interview stage where we discuss their digital advertising with them. So the most recent study we've been working on is with 100 Australians around ads for reproductive and sexual health products and services. So here's some examples, ads related to perimenopause or to different products that they can apply to their genitals, or for how to be a beast in the bedroom. So as you can imagine, these ads are really shaping people's desires, preferences, and consumption. And so it's important that we discuss with them, you know, how are they making decisions about their health and their bodies in relation to these ads. So this is the kind of qualitative approach we take. So on the dashboard, we're also able to manually tag. So all of these ads can be manually tagged by our research team, and increasingly we're finding automated ways to do this kind of tagging. So whether it's a different, an alcohol ad, or an ad for gambling, or any other kind of category that we determine. So the dashboard allows us to tag and classify ads in particular ways. And then again, we can identify suitable participants to interview. So I guess this research wouldn't be possible without tools like the MOTE, Advertising Toolkit. And it really is thanks to the Australian Internet Observatory that this is possible, that we can work closely with participants to understand their perspectives and experiences with digital advertising. We know that digital platforms try and create transparency libraries for their own purposes, but that doesn't give us a longitudinal archive of what people are actually seeing. So by working closely with Australians, we get a situated, reflexive account of how those ads are really shaping their lives, everyday lives. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Giselle. And my name is Bogdan. I'm the research training manager for our project, and I've been given this difficult task to wrap things up. And I guess in my position, so we're developing all these beautiful tools. You got these dashboards, we have ARD that collects data from everywhere and then gives, you know, this exploratory perspective on what's happening around the world. and we have a data donation program, all these beautiful apps. But what we need to do as a project, as an observatory, we need to connect all these things together, connect them to researchers, connect them to their actual needs, to what they require. And it's a bit problematic because Hessenai research is very diverse. We have economists, and we have economists again, psychologists, we have sociologists, political scientists, linguists, people studying communications and all these things. And we have a set of tools. We've got these data sets from Reddit and then Blue Sky, all these platforms, data donation. But what do they actually need? And then if we just, we could, as a research training manager, I could just, write up a few, pages of what these tools are, upload them online, and it's a done deal. So what's my job for? And I think what we need to do is through engagement, through onboarding, we need to make sure that researchers understand what we develop here and are able to apply these tools in their particular contexts. And then the way we've been doing this so far is we've been talking to researchers individually, one by one, asking them questions. For example, what are your methods? What do you want to study? What do you want to achieve? And we're not experts. We don't really have any knowledge in, I'm a political scientist. And for example, Amanda is absolutely from a different field. And then Richard is from computer science. But what we could attempt to do is we could ask them questions and then listen to them and find the right tool for them, make a recommendation. And once they get this recommendation, they will get, oh, maybe I need that Reddit data. And how do you access it? Well, if you got these tools, please. But not necessarily. They don't have, so our goal is to provide access to this infrastructure and to make sure that researchers can engage with this infrastructure without drawing them to a particular tool, but rather, I guess, creating this culture where there is a place for, I guess, digital research, and but there is a place for these methods, and then these methods could be successfully incorporated into different kinds of research design and potentially improve Australian academia, science, government, and the way we deal with things and the way we solve social issues, I guess. And yeah, so in addition to this, we've of course been engaging with ARDC. We will participate in the summer school in February. Please come. And ADM+S Summer School. We're also planning a few other events. We've been at different conferences in Australia, around the world, APSA, ANSCA. We've been making videos. That's me trying to get rid of this reflection. So it's a long process. My forehead reflects a lot. And publishing materials on the website as well. So if we combine all these approaches and we talk to researchers, listen to them, and we apply this personal approach, I think we could potentially achieve a lot and make data more accessible and observable. And thank you. Follow us on LinkedIn.
Your forehead is fine. Yeah, we do have time for questions. Any questions? Oh, sorry. Any questions online? Where's Kit? Kit, you got any online questions? Yeah.
Wow, it looks amazing. It's really good to have that walkthrough. I guess mine's a simple question. Who's using it? So who are, well, I guess different people can answer that question, but who are the data donators? I mean, do you have a sense of that's, I'm sure you do, the kind of sample population? And I know it's not a large population study, like I really get that now. And then also who's accessing, I can see research interest in this, but much broader interest in this as well. So be interested to know who, it's fab that you're working with the gambling people and the non-gambling people, you know, that alliance, and with and looking at alcohol advertising. But yeah, just a bit more of a sense of who's engaging.
Yeah, so I guess it's not representative, but we're working closely with market research companies to recruit Australians. So it isn't as though we're going out for this one particular study and recruiting ourselves. So they have more representative samples, and we're recruiting across ages. So from 16 years old to older Australians, over 65s. So yeah, again, a sample size of more than 400 participants involved in participatory research is quite large. And working closely with civil society organisations to really meet their needs of what they want to show with advertising, what questions do they have, and us working alongside them to produce policy relevant recommendations and reports, to work closely in media outputs. There's been a lot of media that we've been involved in this year. I myself have been working closely with Family Planning Australia, doing some outputs around, you know, quite harmful advertising in relation to these sexual and reproductive health ads. So it is researchers working closely with civil society, recruiting Australians to create results and findings that can impact policy and other outputs. Yeah.
I mean, from the ed perspective, we have... Oh, sorry, I was just going to follow up on that question. Okay, I'll show you. All right, no, so I guess we have, when we first rolled out Ed, people would have to fill in a small why you want access and, you know, what was your research. Now we've just allowed open access. Anyone can log in and do stuff. We're tracking it from a university. But so we are building logging information about how many times people logging in for, what are they doing, and this kind of stuff. But I think it's fair to say our user community is completely diverse. Lots of people in computer science who wants to do natural language processing and get access to lots of different data, people from the urban field, people from the social field, random.
Thank you. Monica Bednarik, University of Sydney. I just have a question about the data donation, actually. You mentioned, well, presumably it's for ethical reasons that you're giving the users the opportunity to delete content. But how does that interact with the representativeness of the data in terms of telling us what Australians are actually doing and are actually getting exposed to? So if you could discuss that a little bit, thank you.
Yeah. Is this on? Yeah, okay. It's a great question. And well, really, so in the past year is when we've really started building up this platform and exploring the possibility of data download packages in particular as a research object, I suppose. The challenge is that every platform offers something different in their data download package. So YouTube, for example, you can actually access things like watch history and search history, including the pre-roll advertising that they watch before a video. Instagram doesn't really provide a comprehensive history, for example. So we've done a lot of work, and in particular, one of our colleagues, Fatoon, has done an incredible job kind of just building up a schema of what actually is available. And then in terms of representativeness, I suppose up to this point, you know, we've really just been exploring what is possible with this kind of research object and doing quite small scale qualitative studies. So it's less about representativeness of what Australians actually see online, but more on an individual kind of level of how individuals are targeted or interact with these platforms. And of course, the data donation package is an object that is created by the platform. So there's always this sort of question about what do they allow us to see? What kind of data do they actually provide in these data download packages? And you know, at any time that can change. So it raises interesting questions about platform observability and governance as well, like what should be in these packages. So I hope that answers your question.
And just to add, in terms of representativeness, I guess this is also a very good additional method, not like necessarily the primary method for data collection, but rather something that can complement interviews. So, for example, you have a number of participants, and then you want to see, for example, how they experience social media, and then how they interact with different posts, or what kinds of advertising they see, like advice on parenting, or I don't know, sexual advice. And you can also, after that, you can ask them. So you have this data from them, and after that, you can also ask them questions like, what experiences have you had with this platform? What do you think about this particular issue as you interacted, and how it changed your mind about something? So it's like it's a combination. It's more of something that can be integrated and then make it strengthen research projects.
Yeah, I guess I just echo these sentiments as well. It's never really going to be representative. It's more qualitative research. And yeah, I guess from an ethical perspective, it is important to allow participants to have some say around what they are donating or what they do want to hide from us. In saying that, we know that people are willing to share a lot and have really meaningful conversations. We work closely together on an alcohol study, and people are donating all of, we think, the alcohol ads that they see, and are willing to engage in very meaningful conversations about how they're being targeted on their dependency issues and etc. So I think people are willing to donate a lot more than we think, but giving them the opportunity to remove certain things is really important.
Thank you for the presentation. It's really interesting. I'm Charles Sun from Sydney Informatics Hub in University of Sydney. Yeah, just I have a question about the data donation, where the user can choose what to hide from, when they upload, what they want to keep private. But I also saw there's a scraping process after that. You can scrape complementary data. I don't know if I understand correctly, but would that recover whatever they want to hide? And also, since different users would have different preference on what they want to keep, would that cause a lot of missing data when you combine them later? And how does that affect the data quality?
Yes, excellent questions. Thank you. So in relation to the sort of data scraping that I think Patrik mentioned in the For You project, so in that case, he's talking about a sort of process that we're calling data enrichment. For example, the TikTok data that Patrik had access to, TikTok actually, if you go and download your data download package, it provides you with a link to all the videos that you've watched. It doesn't provide you with the media of the videos. So in order to do their content analysis, they are then taking the link to access and retain the video, or temporarily, I believe. I don't think they're actually saving it, but to then do their sort of thematic analysis on the video. So the scraping or enrichment process wouldn't necessarily recover anything that they chose to delete, but we're able to understand more information about the data they've shared to us. So, we're exploring with YouTube, for example, if someone provided a list of all of the channels that they followed, we could access additional data about those channels, such as the category that they've put themselves in or how many followers that channel has. So it's more of like a way to capture additional data in the ecosystem. Your other question about data validity is something that a lot of people around the world who are thinking about data donation have also been raising. And so far, the way that researchers have been starting to address this is that participants can remove data, and I think this is a feature we will eventually implement, but it would actually just create a log that says that the participant chose to remove something. So you would still be able, for example, to get a count of how many TikTok videos they watched without necessarily knowing what was in the videos that they chose to remove. So the data validity issue, we can get around it in some ways, but not entirely.
Yeah, just to also add, as we've said, it's not aiming to be a representative sample, but we are also potentially dealing with hundreds of thousands of, say, TikTok videos. So the capacity, I mean, there is an issue actually with the actual capacity of people to meaningfully, delete things, and at that scale, you know, if we're not aiming for a completely representative sample, we're still getting a really extensive view of the kinds of material that they are seeing. So, yeah.
Yep, we've got a question from the live stream. In order for researchers to engage meaningfully with digital research infrastructure, it requires a certain level of digital research infrastructure literacy. How are you supporting this?
Is this? So I think that our main idea is to make access data as accessible as possible. So meaning that you don't really have to have a lot of like skills, for example. You don't need to understand much about social media data. So I mean, as a researcher, you have to in order to know the implications, how social media impacts your particular study. But in terms of, you don't need to know any programming languages, for example. You can just log in, you can enroll your participants, upload their data packages into the dashboard. And then our goal is also to provide them with a detailed description of how it's all done. So how you, for example, log in, what steps you take, and then how you handle specific queries from your respondents, for example. And then once it's delivered, it's in the dashboard. So you see it, it's all visualized, it's all there on the screen. So basically you just start to analyze it. And then you look at it, for example, you do your qualitative analysis, or you download it, export it, and then just use some other kind of software to explore it. I mean, it's all up to you. And I think the main idea is to reduce this requirement of being proficient with different computational tools and make it simple, make it efficient, and make sure that researchers, regardless of their skill, can still use some of that, something that we offer. Yeah, so I guess that probably answers it.
I mean, I gave you an example before about using a large language model just to say write text. And then I showed you an example where somebody wants to programmatically grab some data that mentions certain things and do graphs and charts of it. Those deeper analysis, now we can generate that automatically. So a lot of my techies are using agent-based sort of large language models, which generates the code. And this is very common these days on the tech side. That's hence techies are not as valuable as they once were, because an algorithm can put you out of business when it's built in the right way. So we're exploring that space in detail. So in principle, you don't know how to write Python or Java, but you can say, I would like to grab this data, plot it, and do a linear correlation. If you don't know what that means, then okay, there's an element of how far along we can help people who know nothing to, as long as you know the basics of what you're trying to do, the systems that we're using now can generate the code for you. And we've had, I mean, Luca gave me an example where he was generating a really complicated software stack. And through an agent-based approach, he's saying, I want a user interface, I want a database, I want this, I want that. And then later on, he said, change the database. I want to add an extra parameter. Automatically, it updates all the things that the dependencies in the software and now generate tests for me. And all of this is auto-generated. So he's just looking, as a software developer, building his code, writing queries, as you would with a ChatGPT, which generates the code. And then you can see, exactly how this is unfolding before your eyes without you having to, hence teaching is a nightmare. Just to say, this is a different topic, but teaching cloud computing, which is what I do, is very difficult because they can generate the answers. I used to think it was, they won't be able to solve this. They can. This technology doesn't know any limits in terms of what it's capable of doing. So for the future, you probably don't need to be a programmer. You just need to know how to interact with these systems to do it, make them do what you want.
Or watch our videos.
Got one more question. That's it. That's a wrap. Very quickly.
Thanks. Hi, Eve Ansell from QSIF. Richard, you mentioned that you were only collecting data from Australia. What are the parameters of that? How are you doing it?
There's a range of different approaches. I mean, the old days, going back 5-6 years, it'd be you put a bounding box around Australia and say to Twitter, I want all data from here, and it will give you a few of the posts. These days, it's a different set of recipes. So for Reddit, for example, we identified different Reddit subgroups the ones that say Melbourne, things of that nature. There's no guarantee that the content, Coffee Cluffers Club Melbourne, could be people from Hawaii posting about our coffee's better. There's no guarantees. Statistically, though, with the amount of data we get, you see patterns which are representative of the real world. But each platform has its own nuances, I guess, in terms of identifying, the location. One thing to say as well, and I'll stop, but I'm going to get shouted at, is that I don't care anyway. But in the old days, we would have a latitude and longitude when someone posted. We'd know where it was, and we could connect that with official data, like how many people liked politician X and Y in this area. Most of the time now we don't get that. Almost none of the platforms give us that. But we can actually build models which can predict where someone's posting from. And that's what I'm doing right now with a lot of my students to demonstrate. Can we identify which suburb, which city, which state this came from? And depending on the content, depending on the profile, and we have data which we can use to test how good we are at getting that kind of information. So this is one of the conversations we'll have next week with Amanda. That's the vision I have moving forward, connecting all this official data with all the random noise that's not geolocated to be able to show patterns of what people are talking about online and how does it correlate with the official data that we know for those areas where we think they're from. So
you won't get shouted at. But that brings it to a close. Thank you very much, each and every one of you, for your contributions.